So you might be wondering, we've heard a lot about the new iPhones, the new Apple Watch, but what the hell's happening with this year's base iPads? Well, we have some new tidbits, so let's delve into it. Now, in case you're wondering, every single year since 2017, we've seen a new base iPad, and so I was frankly surprised there's literally been no news regarding the iPad 11, but now we have a reason as to why that's the case. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this, it would be appreciated. Credible source Shrimp Apple Pro says he said nothing regarding new iPads coming at the September event, and the last he heard about new iPads from his sources was the fact the production line was being readied, but mass production was yet to begin. And in case you're wondering, that basically rules out a September release because Apple ideally wants a few million iPads ready to go for launch for the Apple sheep to buy up ASAP. And so this report, and also the fact there's been a lack of leaks on the whole, does suggest Apple's permanently switching the base iPads to an October release timeframe instead. Last year we saw the iPad 10 release in October for the first time ever, and till this day, I'm not sure why that was the case. It's not like they were having manufacturing issues with an iPad that looks like basically every other iPad. So yeah, I'm not sure why there was a delay last year, but it seems Apple's gonna stick to this. So yes, expect an event on the iPad and Mac in October, but I will say, government actually seems to be backtracking on the idea of an actual event, and seems to suggest we could see Apple randomly drop these new products on Apple's site, aka a press release. And to be fair, I could see this happening because the iPad 11 really is not that big of a refresh. And actually, let's talk about that. What kind of upgrades can we expect? What about Apple Pencil 2 support or a display that's laminated? No, we're not getting that because as much as I want to see those upgrades and was hoping the iPad 10 would flop so hard on its face because of its terrible value, it seems, as per usual guys, we techies got it wrong because we didn't realize that regular consumers don't care about those emissions. Yes, I have to admit I was wrong because this refresh has somehow single-handedly boosted Apple's market share for tablets in the US from 38.6 to 50%. Am I reading that right? 50% in this economy? That's crazy. And so here's an important tip for other companies. Your consumers won't care about higher prices and the lack of some key features as long as you just give them fun colors. Because at the end of the day, who cares about a display gap when this iPad comes in pink? Yay! Jokes aside, by far the saddest thing about this news is that because the iPad 10 has miraculously sold so well, many of the compromises we complained about will likely never get fixed, because why should they spend money on adding higher end features when only a small portion of Apple nerds are gonna care about this? So for one, expect this year's base iPad to continue using Apple Pencil 1 with the absolutely stupid dongle, especially when regular consumers clearly don't care about the absurd charging methods. They would rather differentiate the range and stick to the older Pencil for this iPad. Plus, they have the landscape camera that takes up the space needed for the Apple Pencil 2 charging strip. And of course, they can't be asked to re-engineer the internals because Timothy's got to maximize those profits and recycle as much as he can. Another thing people complained about was the lack of a laminated panel on the iPads. Now, this has been a staple of all budget iPads since their conception, and I don't see this changing anytime soon. Now, to be fair, someone who's had an iPad 10, I will be honest, the air gap's not as apparent anymore, so personally, I can look past this. And do remember that panels that are not laminated are easier to repair, which is key for schools and parents because kids break absolutely everything. So now you may be wondering, what exactly is going to be different with the iPad 11? Well, I think there'll be two changes Apple gives us, and that's the SoC and pricing. So first of all, let's talk about the SoC. This, of course, is the simplest upgrade Apple can do with these iPads, and that's what we usually see anyways, because remember, apart from the iPad 10, the rest of the budget iPads all look the same for the most part, and we're just rehashing the OG iPad Air design. And so it's really the chip that was different every single year, so of course, expect that this year as well. Yes, we're jumping to A15, boys. And logistically speaking, this makes sense because A15 is currently used on a wide range of products like the Apple TV, the iPhone 13, the 14, the SE, the iPad mini. That's a bucket load of products. So I'm sure it's going to be simpler and cheaper for their supply chain to allocate this widely produced SoC to the iPads. Plus, once the iPhone 12 gets discontinued later this year, the A14 is going to be out of circulation, so it makes no sense to continue producing those just for the base iPads. Tim is a logistics master, and so he's going to use some of those big brain strats, and he's going to allocate the already widely produced A15 to this iPad as well. The next big change with iPad 11 should be pricing, and more specifically, a price cut. Last year with the iPad 10, the price of the base iPads went from $329 to $450, which was a humongous increase that I thought would put off consumers, but clearly it didn't. And so there is a chance Apple does not change pricing, but I'm still hoping for a price cut. Now you may be thinking, why do you think Apple's gonna give us a price cut? Apple never gives us price cuts, right? Well, actually, no, they actually do, because generally when Apple redesigns their base products, they do come with a price increase because the new design brings a ton of wonderful changes, but within a few years, they drop back down to the regular price. Let's take, for example, the MacBook Air the 2018 model gave us, the design we're now familiar with, but of course, it was brand new back then, so the price was $1199, which was a major increase over the regular $999 price point we had come to expect. However, in 2019, Apple dropped the MacBook Air pricing to $1099, and then eventually in 2020, it came back down to the $999 price point. And we're already seeing Apple do this with the M2 MacBook Air as well, because that also was $1,200 to begin with, but recently got price cut to $1099 and should hopefully be $999 once again when the M3 version releases, and then Apple can finally discontinue the M1 Air from the range. And so now apply the same thing to this iPad. Yes, it's somehow selling pretty well at $450, but I'm sure Apple still wants a lower starting price for the iPad range, and while they can currently fill that with the iPad 9, that soon has to be discontinued. And so much like with the MacBook Air, I'm sure this new design will eventually come back down to the $329 price point. So I'm theorizing the iPad 11 is going to be $399, and then the iPad 12 drops to $329, and that would be a much better deal, guys, and I would actually be able to look past the drawbacks. Anyways, if we're lucky, we could see some new spicy colors with the iPad 11, but honestly, guys, if there's one thing Apple actually got right with the iPad 10, it was the colors, the fun, bright, and super vivid. So I would not be too annoyed if Apple just recycles this aspect and keeps the colors exactly the same. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.